Remember this, something we didn't know about is going to be revealed during this eclipse season. That's going to be shocking. One thing that you probably don't know is this eclipse that's coming up August 12th is actually in Cancer sidereally. At the time of this eclipse, Ketu is standing still at 5 degrees of Leo. That is conjunct the fixed star Regulus. Exactly. Regulus is the star of kings and leaders, and Ketu is the indicator of losses. Something big in terms of leadership will change tremendously. Mark my words, this will happen. August is going to be very, very intense, but I think November is far worse. Around the 12th of November, Jupiter, Mars, and Ketu will all align around early Leo. This is huge. This is mass pandemonium. Astrology is the most divine science of all. The ancient Vedic rishis handed this whole system of astrology down to us. There's this beautiful awakening. And here is something that's so fascinating, astrologically referring to that.
What is the significance of an eclipse in astrology, and how does that impact the individual?
Oh, wow. I always say eclipses are the most powerful tool we have for prediction in astrology. And it's because an eclipse is where the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun align. And what is more important in astrology than the Earth, where we are geocentric, but the Moon and the Sun? That is really everything to our consciousness. The moon is our consciousness, it's our emotions, it's our feelings. The sun is the light that gives us energy and life on our planet. And so when an eclipse happens, it's when the shadows are cast on either the sun for a solar eclipse or the moon for a lunar eclipse. And here's what I find so interesting, that when we have eclipses, let me remind you, it is every 6 months that we have a solar eclipse. And then 2 weeks before or after we have a lunar eclipse. So they're not rare, but the light, here's the symbology of it all. When the shadow is cast on the sun, then something comes out of the darkness that we didn't know about. Now, a lunar eclipse that happens 2 weeks later, this deals with the emotional body, that something comes to culmination. So between the eclipse season of the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, you're going to find that something is revealed to you personally. Everyone goes through this that you didn't know about, because out of the darkness comes the shadows, and something that we can all learn from. Now, this goes individually, but of course it goes for the world in consciousness. So there are things that are being revealed around the time of eclipses, and this is such a huge part to help us in our human evolution.
Does the sign play a part in terms of what's being revealed? So these eclipses, like the first one's happening in Leo, what does that do?
Yes.
What does it mean to have an eclipse in Leo? Obviously the constellation of Leo is playing into it, but energetically, what does that actually mean?
Well, in reality, the signs as well as the planets that are involved with an eclipse, here's the thing. I don't want to bring this up right away, but this book I wrote, World Predictions, is about eclipses. What is our future? What I did from the year of 2024 to 2042 is I charted each and every eclipse, what sign they're in, as you're asking. And also in Vedic astrology, we have the nakshatras, which there's 27 nakshatras. We'll get into that. But the nakshatras are based on the meanings from the stars. So in other words, it's the star groupings that are together with the sun and the moon, and this is in the background where the stars are. And actually the stars, by the way, really do constitute the signs. The groupings of stars are the signs. So you're saying the eclipse that's going to be happening in Leo, this is so important because Leo deals with rulerships and kings. So whenever you have an eclipse in a particular sign, it's so important to understand that the sign plus the nakshatra will reveal what's going on. And that's what I did in my book for the whole, every year I went through what nakshatra, what sign the eclipse occurred in, plus any planets that were surrounding the eclipse will flavor the eclipse, because every eclipse is going to be different, very different. But one thing that you probably don't know is this eclipse that's coming up August 12th is actually in Cancer sidereally. Okay.
Mm.
Now, tropically, according to Western astrology, it's in Leo. So, but here's the thing that's so confusing for those that don't know any astrology. Eclipses usually always occur in the sign where the nodes are, because let me explain what an eclipse is. So we talk about the nodes, which are the north node and the south node in Western astrology. In Vedic, we call it Rahu is the north node and Ketu is the south node. So really, the nodes are where the moon will cross the path of the sun, and that's called the ecliptic. So where it hits the ecliptic, the moon going upward, that's Rahu. Where it hits it going downward, that's Ketu. But essentially what's happening is really that the sun, the moon, and the earth are aligning, and that's what the nodes are, this alignment with the sun, the moon, and the earth. That's why when we talk about Rahu and Ketu, they cause eclipses. But not only do they cause eclipses, in a birth chart, they will represent your destiny, who you are, what you're experiencing in your life, where you're going. They're probably the most important thing when you talk about karma, reincarnation, where you're going, and particularly what your future is going to be about. These are enormous tools. So these are the factors that cause eclipses. So what is a solar eclipse? But it's actually where the sun and the moon can join the exact degree. And when it lines up with Rahu or Ketu, that's when you have an eclipse. And they're always 6 months apart, because it's like where all the planets are running around and then the sun and the moon come together. We have a new moon, but they have to come together with Rahu or Ketu to have an eclipse, or the north node and the south node. That's why Rahu and Ketu are exactly opposite in the zodiac. So you have an eclipse where it happens with Rahu, and then 6 months later with Ketu. So
I might be interrupting and digressing us a little bit too hard here, but I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, the moon is a celestial body and object in the night sky, and the sun is too. Yeah. But the north node and the south node, Rahu and Ketu, are actually calculated points that aren't actually physical celestial bodies that are in the night sky. And so and it's almost like picture two circles that are sort of like floating around, like being calculated, there's probably an equation that is there. Sorry, but pardon me, I'm being an engineer. But yeah, that's created between these two objects. But when these two objects line up, everything collapses in on itself, and the north node and the south node line up as well. For those people that are like, oh, how often does all four of these things line up? No, every time the sun and the moon line up, the equation collapses down, and the north node and the south node are on top. So every eclipse, Rahu and Ketu, north node, south node, fall in on the eclipse. Correct, Joni?
correct. But we have a new moon every single month. So, but it's when they come and line up, as you say, collapse with the nodes of the moon, that's when we have an eclipse. So it's like you can have a Rahu eclipse or a Ketu eclipse. And right now, coming up here in August, on around August 12th, there's going to be a solar eclipse with Ketu. But here is the parameters that determine an eclipse, because you might say, well, what determines the degree points? Because we have the new moon in Cancer, and this is sidereal Vedic astrology, not tropical Western, but we also have Ketu in Leo. How can that be that they equate together? They have to be within an 18-degree orb. That's what equates to an eclipse. Now, the closer that everything is together, the more you have a total solar eclipse, because that means everything's lining up totally, and the shadow will be cast completely on the sun or on the moon when you have a lunar eclipse. So this is pretty much just when everything lines up. But you have a new moon every single month and a full moon every month. But it's really when they totally line up with these nodes, which is when just really what it's saying. It's kind of hard to visualize. But what it's saying is when they totally line up, the sun, the moon, the earth, and these nodes mean they are on top of each other, which is an eclipse, you see? So this one that's coming up in August is happening where Ketu is at 5 degrees of Leo, and the sun and the moon conjunction is at 25 degrees of Cancer. So what we're seeing is it's a 10-degree orb between them because it's like 30 degrees to a sign, 25 degrees, and then 5 degrees, that's 5 and 5, 10 degrees that the nodes are apart from the new moon. Does that make sense now,
It does. And
astronomically?
does that qualify as a partial solar eclipse, or that's still a total solar eclipse because it's still within that 18-degree orb?
I'm not positive that this one is total solar eclipse. I do know that coming up, the lunar eclipse is, I believe, total. So it's total in it's the shadows being cast and exactly being aligned. And this eclipse, though, I think is really fascinating because during the time of an eclipse, here's another thing that's noted. Rahu and Ketu, the nodes of the moon, they actually stand still during the time of eclipses. And this is so confusing because some Vedic astrologers use the true node, some of them use the mean node. I don't even know if this is relevant in Western astrology, but the true node is its exact movements, and the mean node is they just take the movement of the entire time period that Rahu and Ketu are in a sign, which is a year and a half, and they move it each month a degree and a half because that's the mean motion. But its actual motion is during the time of an eclipse, it stands still for 3 months about at the same degree. And then it's very erratic. It starts moving quicker. But remember this too, that the nodes of the moon travel backwards in the zodiac. So you may be looking at Cancer being 25 degrees and K2 being 5 degrees Leo, but they're really coming together because the nodes travel backwards and the planets are moving forward. So that's another thing that's confusing.
But I think you were about to explain something about it being coming to station, right? Do you call that coming to station?
I call it coming to station because what you're going to find with what I do with astrology, stationing planets are so powerful. When they come to a station, and what a station essentially means is when they're moving from retrograde or direct. So when they change directions, they actually appear to stand still for a short time. And that means that planet is like 10 times more powerful when it's standing still. Therefore, the nodes of the moon, Rahu and Ketu, standing still, they're more powerful at that time. And they make a bigger impact. That's why eclipses are so powerful. Because remember, the nodes of the moon actually deal with our destiny. But at the time of this eclipse, K2 is standing still at 5 degrees of Leo. And the reason why I think this is so important is
Please.
that is conjunct the fixed star Regulus. Exactly. Regulus is the star of kings and leaders. And K2 is the indicator of losses and letting go, something that I always say wherever K2 is in your chart, and this is very important to understand, even in your birth chart, you will feel a sense of something missing, something lost, something not whole or complete. It's like it feels like something's draining out and you need to fill it because it feels empty. That's the energy of K2. And it also represents the past, can reflect past lives and everything that maybe we were in our past life and what we're here to learn. So you can get the gist of how powerful just looking at this point in a birth chart is, much less where it is in the heavens and when a star or a planet comes together with one of these nodal axes, Rahu or Ketu. And in the sign, it also represents what it's referring to. Leo is the sign of kings and leaders. And that's why I've been saying between now, where Ketu's 5 degrees, and it will continue to be 5 degrees for the next like 2 months, because it's just turning here, that will be the loss of some leader or something to do with leadership. This is definite because not only that Ketu's here in Leo, but it's on that star. It's stationing, it's standing still on Regulus, and this is the heart of the lion. And I think this is huge. And that's another thing that I want to make reference to with the fact of sidereal astrology. Sidereal astrology, sidereal means star, by the way. And what it means is we're true to the stars. And the groupings of stars are all moving in the zodiac. They move very, very, very slow, but they move backwards in the zodiac. And this is called precession of the equinoxes. And Western astrology does not take into account the movement of the stars. Vedic takes this into account. Therefore, the Vedic positions are astronomically correct according to astronomy. But here's what I think is so fascinating about it. The fact that these stars, as they're moving backwards, they come and they are reflected by the meanings of certain stars in the groupings, such as Leo, Regulus. If you look at the meanings for the star Regulus, it's everything that denotes Leo: leadership, kings, loyalty, open-heartedness, the heart energy. That's Leo, that's Regulus. So you see, the stars give the signs their flavor and meaning. But Western astrologers say that Regulus is now in Virgo. And to me, this cannot make sense because the stars have to stay true to themselves. Aldebaran, the eye of the bull, cannot be in Gemini. And that's where the tropical astrologers say it is, as well as the heart of the scorpion. Antares has to be in Scorpio, not Sagittarius. So this is where I really love Vedic astrology because it's true to the stars, and this is what gives these meanings. So going back to this eclipse, K2 it's very significant between now and November that something big in terms of leadership will change tremendously. Mark my words, this will happen between now and November. And here is another tool. Let me jump in with this other tool because I love to teach this to all my students because it absolutely works. And that is, once you figure out the degrees of the eclipses, which is 25 degrees of Cancer, this happens. So it's where the sun and the moon are, not where Ketu or Rahu are. But still, where Rahu and Ketu are very, very significant. Don't get me wrong with that. But you mark the degree of the sun and the moon. So it's 25 degrees of Cancer. What I found is after an eclipse, when you have the transit of Mars cross over, either conjunct or opposed, that eclipse degree, an event happens. And I will prove my point with this with many examples. But my point right now that I want everyone to listen to is that Mars is going to cross over 25 degrees of Cancer after this eclipse, November 3rd. Wait and see if something huge doesn't occur on November 3rd. And let me go back historically and explain this concept. So 9/11, you will see that the previous eclipse degree from 9/11, on 9/11, Mars came up and exactly opposed the previous eclipse degree on that day, September 11th, 2001. So I've been charting this throughout the years. And another one that happened was COVID. I was watching the eclipse degree that happened during COVID. It was in December of 2019. And right there, the eclipse was with Mars. Saturn was with Pluto. My God, that was the makeup of everything that was about to happen. And then it was like, I think it was in February, January, and in February, Mars crossed over that eclipse degree. That was when the total shutdown of the world happened, when Mars hit that degree. So I was just looking at this last eclipse that happened last February. It happened in Aquarius, but it was on February 28th that Mars hit that previous eclipse degree. And that was when the United States bombed Iran, exactly on that day, February 28th. And another thing that I kept talking about prior to that eclipse is that the Neptune and Saturn conjunction were together. And it doesn't matter if you do Vedic or Western astrology because the conjunctions will happen on the same day. The planetary aspects are the same. It's just they're in a different sign.
Hey there, Inspired Souls. I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you that are subscribed to this podcast. It costs absolutely nothing, it's completely free, and yet what you've done is support an entire channel to be able to do what it does. Like I like to say, everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. I cannot thank you enough for your incredible love and for your support. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Like I said, it costs absolutely nothing. It's completely free. Please click that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, join the community, join the movement, spreading love, positivity, and wisdom like this around the planet together. And please subscribe to our channel and also all your favorite spiritual channels that are available here on YouTube as well. It allows the algorithm to know that spirituality and spiritual content matters on this platform, and it will help your feed. You will be the first to know when content drops from your favorite creators, and also lets the algorithm know that content like this universally is important as well. So thank you so much for supporting spiritual independent media at a time like this when I think we need it more than ever. Touch wood. Thank you so much in advance. And while I've got your attention, just a friendly reminder, if you are loving this content and would like to forge it into real connection, then you can do so at the Inspired Evolution Community Circle. Inside the circle, once a month you get to meet guests and ask your own questions directly of these guests. I step out of the way, you become the podcaster, and you get to ask your own questions. And once a week we gather in meditation, community sharings, which are not recorded, completely private spaces where we dive in super deep, unpack deep personal content, but also metaphysical times, the energetics, what's going on. And it's just a really therapeutic place to be in some ways, to just know that you're not going through all of this alone. What I like to say is if you want a space full of like-minded, like-hearted beings, do come check us out. We affectionately would love to welcome you home on the inside at the circle. It's such a beautiful, yummy space. So if you feel the call, check us out, inspiredevolution.com/circle. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Back to the episode. The energetic flavor from the sign is different, that's all. But the timing's one for one. Yeah. It's interesting because what I'm hearing from you there is the eclipse itself is significant in the ways that, everything is lining up and then things are going station in that moment. So it's incredibly profound. But then also there's almost this trace, element to it. I'm picturing those Microsoft, the old Microsoft computers where you would move the mouse and there'd be this trail sort of energy that comes in behind it. Because every time a planet goes past that degree until the next eclipse, that point is still very active for all of us. So it's almost like something, it's not just the eclipse moment itself. The eclipse actually opens up, I don't want to use the word portal, but maybe that's the right word. It's a portal? Okay, so it opens up this portal kind of energy.
You know what I call it? Yeah. I call it a landmine.
Landmine? Wait, what? Tell us more about that.
Mars crosses over that landmine and boom, it happens. Yeah.
And so as we get these transits going on for all the time ahead, that is consistently being activated. So it's interesting because when you're mentioning, Leo, you said to the degree to Regulus as well. I mean, thrones and, as you said, leaders and leadership. I'm hearing a lot, and when we look around the world at the moment, I mean, just given where we are right now, there does seem to be all the chips around power are just being thrown up into the air. I mean, it just seems like this incredible theme that we're living through at this time, questions around power, who has the power, what power, why they've got power. Mm-hmm. People are rising up against their politicians all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an incredible time for power. Do you see that too?
Absolutely. This is what it's all about because, as you mentioned, the sign, it's Leo. And not to mention, that also I kept talking about the day of August 22nd because that's the day that Ketu and the sun will conjunct. It's not the eclipse, but the sun. And mind you, the sun goes through the whole zodiac once a year. So it coming together with Ketu is not especially rare. It happens every year.
Hmm.
But this year it's happening at 5 degrees of Leo, right around the time of an eclipse, because K2 is standing still. And 5 degrees of Leo, Leo is the degree of Regulus, the star of kings. So that's when they're exactly together on August 22nd. Now, things don't always happen exactly on the days, but I will say this, it was September 10th of 2025, and I said that's when K2 crossed over the sun, but it was in late degree of Leo. Remember, the nodes travel backwards. So now before it leaves Leo, because it's there for a year and a half, it's going to conjunct K2 the second time, but in early degree, and this time it's on Regulus. But before it was like, in the latter degrees of Leo around September 10th. And I said there will be a loss of a leader because the sun is leaders. That's why I said that in K2's loss. And because it's in Leo, I said it would be political. And I think this was part of my psychic side. And I said it will be a turning point. And that was the day Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and his company was called The Turning Point. And I nailed it for that day. I didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was. So it wasn't like, I was like saying anything to do with who he was. But I knew there would be a loss around something political and a leader. And so now we have it where it's going to happen, but this time it's on the star Regulus. So, it could happen. Something, I hope it's not anything like that, but something similar could happen. The loss or the step down or something of a powerful leader. Again, around the end of August. And this eclipse kind of turns it all on as well, that happens earlier in August. So August is going to be very, very intense. But I think November is far worse when Mars crosses over that eclipse degree. And I've seen this over and over and over again through many, many examples. And even the Saturn-Neptune thing going on. Neptune is oil and gas, and Saturn is crude oil. It's black and what's underneath the earth. And them coming together, I kept saying there's going to be something with oil and gas where fuel is going to go sky high. And it did. And people were even laughing at me because I kept talking about oil and gas. But it's just the symbologies in astrology. You bring those meanings of the planets together and you surmise what it means by those symbols and signs that they're in as well. And, everybody's been talking about the alien life and the disclosure, and it hadn't quite happened where the governments have come out and said it's real. But essentially, they are coming out with it. They are releasing the files, and people are talking about it more. And we all know it's true and it's real. And that's because Rahu has been transiting for the year and a half in Aquarius, and Aquarius deals with space and time and what's out there. It's really interesting. But by November 25th, sidereally, Rahu and Ketu will shift into new signs where they're going to be for the next year and a half. And what I have done historically is I go back and I see what happened throughout the years when Rahu and Ketu are in this particular sign. And I find great similarities throughout time. So this is what I see happening. Now, Rahu and Ketu, Rahu being in Aquarius and Ketu being in Leo, they're there for a year and a half, right? Every time they go into sign, they're there for a year and a half. And what happened during that time historically was 2007, they were there before, and that was the release of the iPhone. And then I even went back to 1969 when they were there before. And this was when the internet actually was invented, the very first internet invention. And
Super technological. Yeah.
but we have AI. And this is the beginning. We haven't even seen the likes of where it's going. And I know everybody's afraid of it. Well, not everybody, but people are going, this is going to ruin the world and this is scary. Do you realize they said that about the internet back when it started? So, the thing is we can't stop it. It's coming. You better learn how you can embrace it and have it work. I believe it's going to bring great opportunities, just like the internet did. But people are always afraid of something new that they don't understand and where it could go. We're going to make this work. It's going to bring new opportunities. Yes, it's going to be bad in some other ways, just like the internet is. But this is the turning point for great inventions and newness, and AI is here to stay. It's amazing where we're headed with this new technology. We're in the beginning of it. So this is what this time marked with Rahu in Aquarius and Ketu in Leo. Now we're going to look at where we're headed with Rahu going into the next sign, which we're going to go, let's see, looking at my book, it's Capricorn and Cancer. And what I find Cancer is truly about is about protection. And I did find, looking backwards, there were many more, and it just seems like this happens all the time, but there seemed to be more earthquakes during the time that K2 was in Cancer and Rahu was in Capricorn. So,
Interesting.
and Capricorn does deal with leaders and leadership, and Cancer does deal with protection. So I did note that in 2008 was a time when we had K2 in Cancer and Rahu in Capricorn. And during that time, it's pretty amazing that the economy dropped, everything changed economically, and I think this might be a result happening with these placements again. So we'll see, and more earthquakes. And I think once people become more unsettled, that we have the earth shaking because people are angry, the earth feels it, and it causes more earthquakes. Oh, and this is another thing I forgot to tell you. Whenever there are eclipses, there are more earthquakes because I guess there's something about the seismic pressure of the sun, the moon, and the earth are aligning. And you will see during 2 weeks before, 2 weeks of, and 2 weeks after eclipses, we have more earthquakes. And there's more tragedies, there's more extremes because Rahu and Ketu are the determinants that represent extremes and changes on the planet. And they're aligning with the sun and the moon. And remember this, something we didn't know about is going to be revealed during this eclipse season. That's going to be shocking, I want to say, too.
It's interesting because I was listening back in preparation for today's episode to our last episode, and you did say, you was like, mark my words, in July 2026, where we are now at the time of this recording, and this is going to come out in August, end of July, you said there is, I wrote it down, there will be proof of alien contact coming through. You didn't say there will be alien contact, you said there will be proof of alien contact coming through, word for word. And I remember, and then, Steven Spielberg just launched Disclosure. And the whole video, is made for the mainstream Hollywood, of the whole thing is dedicated to proof of alien contact. Incredible.
And they
absolutely
have,
incredible.
they've been in Washington, D.C. doing all of these hearings, and people have said, absolutely, there's proof. It's just, I guess everybody's waiting for the president to come say it. But we don't really need that, do we?
It does. It does. I have wondered what it means to be, I don't know, maybe I'm incorrectly attributing this to you, but I sort of see you as a seer because you've mentioned that you get these astrological downloads, yes, but you also have some quite prophetic dreams for those that know you intimately. There's a bit of a, from the outside looking in, I wonder what it's like to be a seer. There's some, not even just the moral conundrums of it. Sure there's a whole podcast there, but even just how you must feel emotionally at times, knowing that things are coming that may not be the most palatable. It's not the most optimistic. As you're saying, November, watch out. How does that feel, being that person that's aware of that and then having to share that with the world?
Yeah, it is really, you know, sometimes you wonder, am I helping the world by telling them? Am I hurting the world by telling them or not telling them? And because I believe in free will and that things can change, although the planets, when they're in their motion, the planets are energy, the planets are vibration and feeling. They affect us. And in order to break some of that hold that it has on us, we got to really work on ourselves. So I think it's important to tell the world because I believe they can put out positive light and energy towards this and what could be happening. And I have a Patreon group, and we just, really worked on our meditations last week because of this and what's happening. And not to mention, AI is going to start. Here's something that bothers me. It's not the most uplifting thought at all, is that with AI, what people keep using all this technology for is war. This should be used for healing, in my opinion. This should be like to discover new ways of healing and, how we're going to heal our bodies and give ourselves longevity, make our lives better, not to try to find how to create more war missiles and destroy each other. I just really I hate that. I hate to use such a powerful word such as hate, but just, why can't we use this for the empowerment and good? So my point is to answer your question. Yes, I should tell people in order for the light to be cast to help these dark times when things get intense, because essentially what is happening is people are waking up to what's been going on in the world. And, we do live in a world of duality. It's never going to be peaches and cream here. We're here to learn lessons. So duality means there's the forces of negative and positive. You want to call it dark and light. Those forces are always going to be here because really duality is like male, female, night, day, man, woman, father, mother. These are dualities that this world is a part of, the sun and the moon. So therefore, with this, we have to be the stronger ones with the light that counteracts this negative force that's always going to be there and pulling. And that's why, I wish I could say to the world, we're coming to this utopian time and we're going to stay there and be there. But it will never happen here. So by giving warnings, people can really pull back and be more careful and not plan your most serious trips and things during these times. And let me say this. For example, I used to have a Japanese website for about 7 years. This was a while ago. And I would make predictions for Japan every month, send it to my translator. She'd put it up on my website. And I actually predicted that major Japanese earthquake that happened in March of 2011. I predicted it the month before, and so many people thanked me. They came and they thanked me and they said, "Thank you for telling us I was going to get married that month, and I changed my wedding date." That's the power of knowing, to be able to prevent things and not plan things on these times that can be more difficult when the world is, blowing up or whatever. I don't want to say that, but, it's definitely, there's always going to be difficult times happening on the planet. Why not prepare? And I don't ever think, I'm not that person that thinks we're not going to have any food, we're not going to have any electricity. I don't think that. I just think, things in certain areas of the world will maybe they won't have electricity. But I don't ever think it's the end of the world. We have so much work to do here, and spiritual work to help transition and help people change. That's another thing that I think is happening now. Like I said, there's so many things coming out now that we didn't know about. The corruption, the stealing of so much money everywhere in the world. I'm not pointing fingers at any one place, but this has been going on for a long time. And even the assassinations of presidents. All over the world, this has been going on. And who was behind it? Usually they're governments. And so what we're discovering, and the Epstein, all this dark, dirty stuff is surfacing now, and we are starting to find out things we never knew, especially even about the assassination of Kennedy. We now know it wasn't a Lone Ranger doing it. But what I'm trying to say is with all of this, it feels like the world is worse and it's darker because we see all this. But essentially, this is great improvement because you can't change things till you know what the issue is. And now we know what the issue is and what we need to discover and what we need to do to change it. Because with truth, you have freedom. And with freedom, that's where we all are going to create a better world. So we have to know all this dark and dirty stuff that's being exposed right now to be able to change it. So this is what the planets are all about right now. There's that lineup that all the astrologers have been talking about, whether you're a Vedic astrologer or Western astrologer. It's where, the three outer planets are lined up 60 degrees from each other, that sextile, where you have sidereally, it's Pluto at 10 degrees Capricorn, Neptune at 10 degrees Pisces, and you have Uranus at 10 degrees of Taurus. And Jupiter, as we speak today, Emery, is at 10 degrees of
I know.
Cancer. So there's this beautiful awakening. And it just seems like here's all this war and things going on in the world. How can this be an awakening? But it is, because now we know the truth behind everything. Now we got a lot of work ahead of us to clean it up, but we're waking up to the reality and the truth. And when you have the truth, then you know what you can be doing to change things. Does that make sense?
It really does. It really does. I mean, for the individual that's tuning into this, this seems to be quite a lot going on such a global, geopolitical, geophysical, geological scale. I'm wondering, there's going to be someone listening going, okay, so what do I need to do? What do I need to do in this time? It's nice to know that, in some regards that it does feel like, I don't want to sound like this, but the world out there is kind of crumbling in many ways. But also the reassurance you're providing us is, yes, this is part of the design. Don't freak out. You're providing context to the content to support us ruddering through this. But then for the individual day to day, what's their call to arms, call to action during this eclipse? What would you recommend for the person tuning into this?
Well, everyone's
experience?
different. Everyone's different. And what I mean by that, it's where it's happening in your chart. Okay. So if this eclipse is happening in your first house, then you're being made aware of everything to do with your physical being, because that's what it is. If it's in the second house, then you're being made aware of your spending, your finances, your family matters. If it's in the third house, it's going to deal with how you communicate or even an issue coming up with your siblings. So each house has its meanings. But the 12th house, I feel like, is the most symbolic and the deepest. So that would mean anyone that has it going on, it's in Cancer. So if you have a Leo ascendant or a Leo moon in Sidereal Vedic astrology, it's happening in the 12th house. And the 12th house deals with the past. And I love this because when things are opened up from your past that you didn't know about, and it's very emotional and usually upsetting, but it gives you this opportunity to realize what's been holding you back your whole life. Because when you realize your past, you can definitely see the things that, you've been doing to sabotage your life. And it's usually in your subconscious mind. And of course, it originates from your childhood experiences when our whole subconscious mind is forming and our mind is actually forming. So when those things arise and these heavy emotions about what people have done to you and how you feel, then you can say, now I recognize what it is that I have created to hold myself back at every instance of when I almost had success, but it was taken away from me because you blocked it from something in your past. And this realization, you don't even have to go through any psychiatric work or anything, just this realization releases it. Like, that's what it was all this time. That was the time that, well, I'll give you a hilarious example. One thing came to me, this is really silly, but it's true, that when I was in first grade, I was in Catholic school, and the nuns, we had this big reading contest. Whoever read 100, the most books, 100 books would win this contest. So I thought, I'll read 110. My sister said, read 110, you'll beat everyone. So I read 110. Of course, there was another little girl that read 110, but there was this beautiful, beautiful statue that whoever won it got it. It was of Mother Mary. It was a wooden, beautiful statue. I wanted that statue so bad. And so when the day came and we both read the same amount of books, the teacher said, okay, I'm going to put this behind my back. And she grabbed a real crummy plastic one. And she says, now you guys pick hands. Of course, I didn't get the one I wanted. And it seems so stupid and insignificant. But here's what it equated in my young mind. My best is never good enough. I'll never get the prize I want. And that stuck with me. But when I realized that, I released it, and it doesn't hamper my effects of my future anymore like it always did. My best is never good enough. I'll never achieve the goal I want. Now, these kind of things seem so silly and insignificant, but they are huge when you're 6 years old.
Yeah, I picture them as those little 1 degree, you leaving the airport and the airplane's like 1 degree off, but if you keep going down the years, you've ended up quite diverted from your original destination, right?
That's a good point. I like that one. It's true. So, I mean, but I'm just saying these eclipses, I'll never forget an eclipse happening in my 12th house and me realizing that silly little scenario. And it was so healing for me. And,
Right for the picking.
I was telling that story to my Patreon group, and it's so cute. One of my members sent me this beautiful wooden carved Mary afterwards.
There's the love right there. I love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the questions I had for you as well, because I feel like only you could really answer this with the depth of your awareness, is metaphysically, what's the difference between like you early on in this conversation were describing the casting of the moon onto the sun from the Earth's point of view, right, for an eclipse, versus the casting of the sun onto the moon for a lunar eclipse. So like when the two different energetics, what is specifically going on? Because you said one is like something is being hidden from our light and something is being revealed from the depths and the shadows. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that is a solar eclipse. I think you've explained that quite well. The lunar eclipse, like what's going on there metaphysically?
Okay. Yes. So the lunar eclipse is the full moon. And what that involves is when the sun and the moon are in opposition, not in conjunction. And therefore you have the earth in between. And what's happening is the earth is casting its shadow on the moon. So what that symbolizes, the moon is your mind. The moon represents our time of night, when we revert into ourselves, when we sleep in the darkness. So this deals with everything to do with our emotional body, whereas the sun, when the sun is being darkened, because in this case it's the earth and the moon, but the sun. And you know what else is fascinating about these eclipses? When you think about it, the size of the moon is so different than the size of the sun, but they line up perfectly, the same disk.
It's ridiculously trippy, yeah? Like the
why
creator or creation that put these objects to be able to do that. And only from our vantage from Earth, because I'm sure from other planets it doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, anyway, it's
but
really
it's so
trippy.
Meaningful, I think, that these objects align with each other perfectly. But to answer your question, the lunar eclipse is going to involve our emotion, our inward battles with ourselves, our spiritual, inward, emotional stuff. Whereas the sun is going to be more with our physical world, what's going on physically in our outer experience, where the moon is more inner. And both are so valuable because really our outside world is reflected by what's really going on with our inward world. Everything that we're thinking, everything that we're saying manifests our life and what's happening. All these things are originated from when our subconscious mind is formed as young children. And that is how we emotionally react to things from what we experience from practically the first 7 years of life. And here is something that's so fascinating, astrologically referring to that. Because when I look at someone's chart, I look at their dashas. The dashas are the predictive tool that we use in Vedic astrology. And these dashas are based on your moon. And so, therefore, what it's essentially saying is your natal moon in Vedic astrology is what determines when events are due to happen in your life. So, whatever nakshatra your moon is in, the planet that rules that nakshatra starts out your entire life cycles. I know I probably went over everyone's head with that, but that's okay. The point I want to get to is when you look at the first seven years of your life, you can see it in those dashas, exactly what happened to you and what makes the framework for the rest of your life, how you respond to everything through your subconscious mind, how you react, how you respond, your emotional responses. And with that, you have to know that you can actually change your responses by becoming conscious and aware of them. So if you're aware of what caused it, why you're doing it, and you listen to yourself, you can change it. Because it's amazing if you really are like a fly on the wall and listen to yourself all day long. I'm shocked with some of the things I say and think. And that's what's creating my world. And the planets are heavy in influencing all that. So, what I'm trying to say, if we can become aware of what the planets are doing and what we're doing consequently, but it's all in alignment with the planetary energy, we can stop it. Because here's what I believe. I believe our entire birth chart is a sum accumulation of everything we've ever been in all of our lifetimes. Therefore, when we're born and we have these birth charts, what it's essentially saying is this is where you left off. These are the things you have to heal because you left these off in a previous lifetime, but you have the opportunity to change them. That's why we're here. And your chart gives you that information. And going back and looking at ourselves from childhood and the planetary energy, it is so powerful to understand what we've been doing to ourselves and why. And that gives us the opportunity to change it.
Hey there, inspired souls. If you'd like a Vedic reading, it would be my honour to read for you. amritsandhu.com/Vedic. Learn more about yourself and also the times ahead and how they're impacting you specifically to your unique chart. amritsandhu.com/Vedic, QR code and link in the description below. Back to Joni in today's episode. We all know that the planets influence us. I mean, if we're tuning into this episode, we've somewhat drunk the Kool-Aid, have we not? But how? I mean, this is a question how is this actually happening? There's a planet out there, Pluto, so far away. Like, whoa, what are you even talking about? How far away? Yeah. And yet it is having an impact on me. What?
It is. I know. Well, first of all, for me to tell you that I truly understand it is like telling you, do I understand how this computer in front of me is working? No.
But it's working. It's
But
so
I know
trippy.
it's working, right?
It's insane.
So that's the main thing. But here's what I do know. The planets are vibration, frequency, and energy, and they say they actually put out a sound. So that's vibration, frequency, and energy. And we're all connected with this. There's no such thing as time, space, and distance. It's all connected. And this is something I think that is so advanced that we can't even understand it, because just think about the matter in our brain. It's not advanced enough to be able to understand the workings of how astrology worked. But I do know that the ancient seers, the rishis, the ancient Vedic rishis, handed this whole system of astrology down to us. and it came through oral tradition. And the reason why we call Indian astrology Vedic astrology is because the oldest references we can find to astrology is in the Vedas. And the Vedas talk about the nakshatras. So these are the books that, or they say there were more oral tradition given to us many, many, many years ago by the saints and the seers, that they gave us what's called Jyotish. And in the ancient Vedas, the ancient scriptures, Jyotish is called the science of light. And they say that the science of light in the Vedas, that astrology is the eyes of the Vedas. What does that tell you? It gives us sight into the darkness that we don't understand. And can we understand astrology and in the mechanics of how it works? I can't. It's way beyond my comprehension. But let me get to something that maybe we can understand, Emery. That's numbers. Vibration frequency is numbers. And what I love the most about Vedic astrology is that it's so mathematically perfect. So what we have
You and me both. Yeah.
what we have in Vedic astrology are divisional charts. And what it is they take a sign, each of the 12 signs, 30-degree segments, and they divide them up into certain portions, such as the D9 chart called the Navamsha. Nav means 9. It takes each sign and it divides it up into 9 portions. And each of those portions are 3 degrees, 20 minutes. This is actually what they call the padas, too. So there are 108 Navamshas in a chart. If you'll take the each of the 9-degree segments and divide that up, you will come with in the 360-degree zodiac 108. And the spiritual reference to that number 108. The mala beads are 108 beads. And it's like
Rosary beads, all of it.
yeah, when we do mantras, they say do them at least 108 times for them to have an effect. This is the magic number. And 1 and 8 is 9. So you're going to find these divine references everywhere to the numbers. So in my studies, I love to study Einstein, and of course, Nikola Tesla. We talked about this earlier. And he said, if you understand the workings of the numbers 369, you will understand the workings of the universe. So I thought, this chart, this Vedic chart, where everything is so divinely divided numerically, it's mathematically perfect. That's why I call Vedic astrology the divine science. But when you look at these numbers, I thought, let me take each of these divisional charts, the divisional chart called the Drekana chart, which is 3. It divides each sign up into 3 divisions, which are 10 degrees. So you get 36 Drekanas, just like 108 Navamshas. And then, so I thought, well, we got to bring in 6. And so the D6 chart is the one that kind of completes it. And what I found is it's relative to like the 6th house in astrology. The 6th house deals with struggles. It deals with health, but it deals with our struggles in life. And the 3rd house, most people talk about the 3rd house dealing with communications or siblings, but essentially it deals with our willpower, our drive, and ambition. In Vedic astrology, that's what they look at for the 3rd house. So when you put that together and you analyze the Drekana chart with the D6, with the D9, and you analyze all those charts, 3, 6, and 9, you actually can figure out someone's purpose, their struggles, and what they're meant to go through, and how to overcome it by looking at the Navamsha chart, the D9, because the D9 chart is said to be the fruit of the tree. And so this particular divisional chart tells you who you're evolving into and what you're becoming throughout your life. That's why I say many times the Navamsha chart doesn't make sense to people till they reach about age 45. Then they can see it. Now I understand what this chart's been all about because I've always been moving towards and developing towards this particular purpose. And once they are there, then the D9 makes sense. So, in accordance to what Nikola Tesla said, my student and now proficient Vedic astrologer Shrikala Ram, we wrote a book together talking about the 369 and the numerical numbers and everything to do about the charts and how we can see, most of all, where we're evolving into, where are our struggles and where is our willpower. This is what we can see by piecing together this divine science of numbers and astrology. So astrology is all about numbers, and numbers is vibration and frequency, and this is what the planets are about.
Yeah, that's fascinating the way you've described that. My God. Yeah, I mean, your relationship with God, do you think there's a creator and a maker, or is this one big simulation, or what do you see? Because there's too much divine order in this. You mean you call it divine science, which is a great way to put it.
I think essentially what we're here to discover is we are part of that. We are one with that. And once we discover that we are that one with the divine God, all of us make that unit up of the divine being of whatever that power is. That is God. I like to call it the divine. When we realize that, then we realize our true power. And then we don't struggle anymore. We're beyond this world. It all opens up for us. And I think that's what we're all moving towards and trying to achieve. And I also think that astrology is the most divine science of all. Because when you really think about astrology, it incorporates all of the sciences. It's mathematical, it's geometry, it's physics, it deals with mythology, spirituality, it deals
Chemistry.
with all of the sciences combined. And I'm really pushing to try to bring a comeback with this realization of that astrology is the divine science, and it needs to come back to its recognition as a whole for society instead of people making fun of it and thinking it doesn't work. And that's another point I want to bring out, if I may. With all of this AI coming out right now,
Here we go. Tell us, because I've seen this.
people are creating.
People are coming up to me. I've got a stellium, and it's like, where? It's like, please,
No,
sorry.
but what I'm talking about is these apps that are being created that are astrological, and the people that are creating them don't even know astrology because it's just pulling stuff from the internet. And that's another ruination of astrology because people say, oh, it doesn't work because it's not real astrology. It's pulling all the junk from the internet and it's giving predictions to people. And this isn't real. This is really bad. So this is one of the bad things of AI. But you want me to tell you one of the good things?
Yes, please tell me.
Okay, so what I think is really cool is I'm using AI for my own app, but everything on my own app will answer any question that you may ask about your birth chart using only my books and my material from my teachings from my university. So therefore, you're getting correct answers astrologically when you use the app that I have really worked hard on to get out. And it's out right now as I speak on Android, and it's going to be coming out very, very soon. It should be out by the time this airs on Apple. So it's called Galactic Planner, by the way, in case anyone wants to know. I am so proud of it, and I've worked wholeheartedly on this for years, to be exact, years to get this right.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be part of a student in the University of Vedic Astrology that you run. And yeah, my God, does the rabbit hole runs so deep, and it's incredibly well put together and also incredibly deep and rich as well. And part of me is looking at the app kind of going, oh my God, does this mean that we don't get to read charts for people anymore? I'm really excited for the innovations and the technologies that are coming through. I mean, 40 plus years of your body of work translated into, you can just ask Joni anything. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Anything about your chart, you can ask it. It will give you an answer based on my material, not the junk on the internet.
Take us through the rest of the year. You mentioned November has quite a significance, as you've mentioned. Yeah, and I'm still walking away from today kind of, yeah, just considering, okay, so pay attention to the degree at which these transits, these eclipses are happening, and just noticing all the transits that come by them for the rest of the year as well. You particularly pointed out Mars. I mean, but have you sort of cast your gaze a little bit further? I mean, as we're
Yes.
starting to approach 2027,
Yes.
yeah, what do you think we should prepare ourselves for?
Okay. This is where it's going, because not only is Mars going to cross over that eclipse degree on November 3rd, soon after that, around the 12th of November, Jupiter, Mars, and Ketu will all align around early Leo, like about 1 degree of Leo. This is huge. This is mass pandemonium. Ketu Mars usually represents terrorist attacks. Usually. Now, that happened when COVID happened too. Mars and K2 came together. You could say that was kind of a terrorist attack, but it looked very different than 9/11. So something on this caliber will happen in November, but going forward into December of 2026, Jupiter will go retrograde, and then in January, Mars will go retrograde, and this Mars retrograde is very, very powerful because it's going to be in Leo, which represents leadership and big changes into 2027. But wait till Mars retrogrades back to the same degree. It'll go back to 26 degrees of Cancer, where it caused the event November 3rd. So here is my prediction. This will happen March 31st, April 1st, that Mars will station to turn direct, so it's standing still at 26 degrees of Cancer, which, by the way, it's debilitated in Cancer, which means major problems. But whatever happened in November will return and be finalized in March and April, around that time. And let me say a few
2027.
20
2027.
Thank you, yes. But
Right.
let's say a few more things about Mars when it goes to 29 degrees of Cancer, which it will, uh, coming up here before it goes into Leo. So this is in the fall that it's going to be in October. That's where it's going to be. So in October, late October, anytime a planet, particularly Mars, goes to 29 degrees of a water sign, it's like drowning. It's called Gandanta. Gandanta means not, but I have found whenever it's at 29 degrees of a water sign, and especially in Cancer, we have floods and major storms. So this hurricane season in October is going to be ferocious. And then again, next spring, 2027, when it hits 29 degrees Cancer again because of its retrograde cycle, it will be in around let's see, that will be in April, mid-April. Major storms and calamities happening that will deal with serious drownings and floods. So whatever happens in November, that there will be major results in March and April. And I almost feel like a lot of people that will get caught with corruption and crazy things happening, I kind of think that's when they might be indicted in in March and April. Wait and see. And then the other thing is that when we're looking at all this stuff happening in I'm looking at the chart for California. I think there could be a major earthquake either in between the eclipse in August till November. Major earthquake in California. And if it's not an earthquake, it will feel like an earthquake with all of the things that are happening. Let me remind people here that don't live in the United States, November 3rd is the midterm elections. And what's going to be happening is so much voter fraud's going to be happening that I think a lot of people are going to be going crazy and nuts, but there's going to be some repercussions that have to be paid by the springtime in 2027.
Some part of coming into 2026, people were saying that 2027 seems to get lighter. It seems to start like 2026 is a very preparatory type sort of year. It's a threshold year. It's like a building up for a breaking through type of year for
Yeah.
2027. I think a lot of us were holding on to that as a sort of mindset and mind frame. This year has been quite intense when you look at geopolitics, like politics, geopolitically, like all this stuff. Yeah, seems like there is a lot of physical stuff happening to the planet in 2027. But do you see it sort of easing off a little bit, some of the tension and the economics and stuff like that in the world? Sounds like not quite in some ways.
It seems like it will a little bit,
Oh,
but
uh-huh.
this is material for another video. But what I see happening in 2030 is ferocious, okay? That
Really?
is where I think everything is building towards the anger, the frustration, the rage. Yes, because the last time I saw Saturn align with Ketu and Uranus was the beginning of World War II. They will align again, even with Mars this time in 2030, but they will be in Taurus instead of Aries, and it looks ferocious. Yeah. I mean, if we don't calm down, you know that's where we're headed with our anger and hate in the world right now. It's pretty intense. Things have got to turn around. So this is where we have to work hard to really bring peace and light to the planet. That's what the light workers here watching this video have to remember. We're all in this together, and we want the world to be a better place.
Mm,
And especially those of us that have children, grandchildren, we don't want this world to continue down the road it's going. We need to really spread the light to look at where we can change, because as you well know, the only thing we can change is ourselves. But we have to quit the rhetoric of the hate, the mean, and come back with trying to see the good in things and not be a Pollyanna, but really do things that can help the world and help other people. This is what it's about, to love, to put out our connection into love, to love our family and our children. The more love that's out there, the more that will vibrate to others in the world. This is our job to do right now. We don't have much time before 2030.
yeah, sometimes I find myself even just the rubber hitting the road in the day to day with like random acts of kindness, I find
Right.
can go a really long way, like a really, really long way. And oftentimes we think we're doing it for the other person, but for me, it's like a
It is.
yeah,
It's
it's
for
you,
you.
you light up inside like a Christmas tree when you're actually doing good stuff for others. It's like a whole thing. If you can figure that out, it's like a yeah, it's
Mhm.
and yeah, and oftentimes in a well, even just in my work as a podcaster, like leading a team,
You're doing
I've
it.
noticed
You're doing the work to help the world. This is it.
touch wood and yeah, but I also find like sometimes like I'm not feeling like my highest best self, and I just find, you know, yeah, just even just communicating that to people, and just saying, hey, like at the moment, like I'm not feeling super like I'm on my perch, like I feel a bit fallen at the moment, and people open yourself up vulnerably sometimes and allowing people to be like, actually, you don't always have to be on a perch, mate. Like relax, and it's sort of just even those moments where it's uncomfortable to say certain things, show up in certain ways, and just I think sometimes we think we have to do a lot. And there is work, but sometimes it's in the micro nuances of just holding the door open a little bit or just sharing a little bit like, hey, sorry if I'm being a bit curt a little bit at the moment. I'm just not feeling like my best self. And just saying those little things, I think those go a lot further than we actually give them credit for.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something that I've been present to. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that is exactly it. I mean, every act of kindness matters. Everything we do, everything we say, we have to remember it all matters and it counts. And what we put out, like you say, it always comes back to us. So I always try to remind myself, what you're putting out there is going to come back to you. So, when I think about people being mean, it's like I feel bad for them because it's going to come back to them. And then they're going to blame the world, blame other people. Oh, the world's so nasty and mean. Well, you are putting that out there and that's why it came back to you. So the more we can be good to ourselves in the world and kind and loving, this is the biggest thing we can do to help the world. And it's that simple. It's not like meditating in a cave. It's really treating people with kindness and love and appreciation. And one thing that can always change a negative in all of us, and we all get there, let's face it. So, one thing I find that's very, very powerful is to sit and contemplate one thing, just one thing that I'm truly grateful for. And when I think about that one thing, send that love and that energy to that one thing and be grateful. Because when you are grateful, then you're going to have more things to be grateful for. And I have to say, I was practicing this last Saturday, and I thought, what am I so grateful for? And I thought of my three sons, and I started crying. Feeling of gratitude and
Touch
gratefulness
wood.
for these three beautiful souls, how much they have given me joy and happiness. It just made my heart burst open. And when you have that, it's going to bring more things to be enlightened and happy about. So,
Mm.
this is a great practice because it helps us all. But you may think your life's miserable or things are going bad for you, but there is one thing all of us can think of at some point that we're grateful for. Focus in on that, and your heart will just explode with gratitude. And that, if you do that one thing, that one practice every day, I promise you it will change your life, from your life, and it's going to help the world. So these are the things we got to remind ourselves to do.
What I'm hearing through this entire thread of this podcast is that this eclipse season is personal power. Personal power is like a really,
I
really,
would
really
love that.
huge theme. And yeah, Joni, I mean, you haven't mentioned too much around this, but if you don't mind me sort of saying, I mean, I'll put a link to the Galactic Planner, stepping into its whole new Galactic app planner version of it in the show notes below. The Galactic Planner in and of itself was really cool to be able to have in my calendar, being able to see when all the transits were coming and just sort of, it was cool because I could also retroactively, as I was falling asleep at night, just go, oh, today was an interesting day. And then I could just sort of open the Galactic Planner and be like, oh, those were the planets
Yeah.
around. Interesting. So it was a really great educational tool. But then also the University of Vedic Astrology, I'll put links to that in the show notes below as well.
Thank you.
Going through that to, study Vedic astrology, it's so incredibly rich. It's so incredibly rich.
Mhm.
I mean, prepare to have your mind blown is basically even just watching. I still can't get over the derivative house system, if I'm honest with you, Joni. Like, just what the actual fact, when you talk about numerology and just like this many steps away from this speaks and this speaks, like numbers,
Mhm.
you literally start to decode the matrix. It's very trippy. Like, do not go into this lightheartedly is my recommendation, is like, you will start to see the divine in everything.
That's true.
It's very, very potent. So yeah, I'll put links to UVA in the show notes below as well.
And
Yep.
I'm starting semester 1 again. So,
Hey!
so you know this, Emery.
Yeah.
I think it's the end of September. And I have live classes every week starting in September. And I cover all these different semesters. But the other thing is there's 40 videos that are pre-recorded, and I just redid all the videos to have these crisp, beautiful new videos with images and learning tools to help people. So there's 40 videos. You take a test after each video. You have a live tutor that you can ask questions to and grade your tests. And every week we have a live class. And I have students in every continent of the world. So I try to arrange the live classes, some my mornings, some my evenings, so that when I have my evening classes, you guys in Australia get to tune in.
Can make it. Yeah.
When I have my morning classes, I have it where the European students can tune in. And so this is a community, is what I'm trying to say. There's people from around the world, and many people have become friends through. They find people in their own country and hook up with them. It's so much fun. It's a fun
Yeah.
way to learn.
And I guess all of that was building up to, I mean, I know one of your missions is to make Vedic astrology go mainstream and just become part of the everyday vernacular. But I think when we all look at you, we see a much deeper mission in terms of the human condition has its ups, downs, and all arounds, and your awareness in and around that, and just finding tools that really support people. I don't want to call life suffering. I mean, it's probably suffering for the ego is one of the things that I've sort of been, the Buddha said life is suffering. And I'm like, you forget about it, it's just for the ego. Life is actually pretty dope. But helping people alleviate and navigate that with grace, Joni, you've dedicated not just so many years, I don't want to age on the podcast, but honestly, like your life, this is your life's work. So thank you so much again for doing this with us here today and bringing us the update for this eclipse season and what to look forward to in the years ahead. But then also thank you so much for you.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and all the other people that you interview to bring the light to the world. We love you and we appreciate you. Thank you, Emery.
It's my absolute honor and pleasure. You, inspired soul, living being, you made it through to the end of another really incredible episode. Eclipse season 2026. There is so much goodness going on at this time. Power, personal power. Yeah, coming back. And I wonder what it means for you to be in your power. Leave your comments below. What will you be doing? What will you be focusing on? And what does power, personal power, mean to you? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. As always, I'd like to thank you. You made it through to right to the end of an episode. It is such an honor to be your brother walking this path by your incredible side. A massive G up, hey yeah to your inspirations to evolve at this time. Thank you so much. To all of you that are subscribed to this podcast, I have to give you an honorable mention. Thank you so much. Like I like to say, everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. Thank you so much for your incredible love and for your support. You're enabling everything you see around here. These conversations are not just me having a chat with someone. They're a total co-creation between all of us, touch wood. So thank you so much. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, as I'm saying the word subscribe, it costs you absolutely nothing. It's completely free. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, join the community, join the movement, spreading love, positivity, and wisdom like this around the planet together. Your subscription goes a really long way. Thank you so much for powering the movement. And talking about the movement, talking about community, come check us out on the Inside in the Circle. It's such a great, yummy space. Once a month, you get to meet these incredible guests like today online, and you get to ask your own questions directly, intimately in these live calls. And it's just an incredible sense of, and I mean, I'm in awe of the questions that you guys ask of these incredible guests as well. I feel like I've got front row seats to my favorite podcast on the Inside in the Community, touch wood. And also we gather weekly. I guide meditations. There's, once a week we do Sunday service, get together, connect as a community sharings, deep sharing circles and portals open up. It's a really, really, really great space, even if I do say so myself. And I know on behalf of me and everybody that's on the inner circle, in the community, inside the circle, we would love to welcome you home. Everybody's got their locations put in as well, so they can start to meet in person as well. It's just, community is medicine as we're moving into this Aquarian age, right? We're designed for community. All the pyramids, all the hierarchies are dissolving. It's all flattening out. And we'd love to bring that community for you. And as much as you're thinking, is this for me? Is this not? I just want to let you know that on the inside, we would love to welcome you home. So do check it out. inspiredevolution.com/circle, QR code, link in the description below. I mean, what have you got to lose? Come check us out for an Inside in a sec. And see if it's for you. And on screen now to continue your inspirations flowing onwards, upwards, and inwards. The next best video. So go on, take your pick, make your click, and I'll see you in the next one. Go on, I'll see you there.